This is the examination of the hidden human condition.
You're listening to the Hidden Killers Podcast.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski.
We are talking with retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, and we're going to dig into the Kohberger case and where things are standing. Lots of document dumps since we last talked, Jennifer, and I'm curious as to what's been standing out to you thus far.
Well, I think it's important to note that the judge is quickly answering and giving his orders regarding all of these motions. Certainly important that on July 14th, that the government will have to produce its CAST report. Specifically, that's the report regarding all of the digital information gleaned from these cell phones. And that is going to be just a huge part of this case. And I know the defense is chomping at the bit to get their hands on that report as well they should be. That's a big one. I thought it was interesting and the right call. I never really understood why the prosecution was digging their heels in on these training records for 3 officers that aren't going to be called. The defense says they're going to call one of them, but their testimony will not be singular in nature. In other words, there were other officers and agents that observed the same thing. So I find that testimony will be really for naught. To me, they're trying to prove that the Moscow Police Department is not well trained. That's what they're trying to get at. Whenever I see a case like this and the defense isn't going after the evidence, they're going after these rabbit holes of trying to discredit, the officers and just picking. That tells me they have an issue because they can't discredit the evidence. Yeah,
I would think if there's, the alibi the exonerating alibi that we've heard about. That would be known by now because I think they'd want to get that out there and not have to wait all the way to a trial if there's something to exonerate him on. Would they not? Exactly.
He's been sitting in a jail cell for 7 months. Is that where we're at, Tony?
Yeah, we are. We are at 7 months now.
And certainly if I had an alibi, if you had an alibi, if you had strong evidence you could not have committed this crime, that would have been well known from day one. You would be screaming from the rooftops, listen, I was doing X, Y, Z. You can check cameras. You can look at where my car was. You can look at where my phone was. I was someplace else. But unfortunately for Bryan Kohberger, all of that information is going to show that he's at 1122 King.
Yeah, and that's what we've learned thus far from some of the reports. And the evidence is going to be coming out here July 14th regarding the cell phone data. Is that information going to be public at that time, or is that just going to be between the defense and the prosecution in discovery?
I think only the defense and prosecution will have that. That's going to be a very detailed and long report that the CAST team is going to put together, those FBI agents and analysts that have worked on that. I wish I could see that.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Those CAST reports are so amazing, how they put all this information together, sometimes down to the steps people took. We know Bryan Kohberger's phone was off for those 2 hours, but I'm curious as to what they can still glean. You just never know. Yeah. They didn't have the time to work on it before the probable cause affidavit was written. That was written pretty quickly.
Sure.
10 days about. So now we're going to have some good information on that.
You had mentioned the police officers, that the 3 that they're looking into and investigating in terms of their training and such. What are they going to try and go after here? I know you said they're going to take a look and say that they're, maybe not trained quite as well as others. Is it going to be some sort of a procedural thing, or maybe something was mishandled? Something? Are they looking to find things to throw out in any way, shape, or form that they can, and that's why they're going all the way back to these officers' training records?
Well, I believe it's because they already have the training records on the other officers that are going to be testifying that are more involved. And now they're wanting the whole picture. So they're going to say, see, across the board, these Moscow officers that were the lead detectives and personnel on this case, look at what training they got. And, many of them are very new, certainly very new by most standards in terms of a rookie versus a seasoned vet. And I bet they haven't gotten a lot of training. So I think they're trying to prove across the board lack of training for Moscow officers on this case.
But how does that stand up against, because, you had SLED involved right away. You have 60 FBI agents, the Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police, Pennsylvania authorities all involved in this. You're going to have less experienced officers on something. It doesn't necessarily, though, change the evidence that's been found.
Perfectly said. That's perfectly said. And that's the point the prosecution is going to bring home. I don't care if Officer X only went through the training academy and had one class on interviewing. He was one of 3 people in the room when witness W was interviewed, and his role was so minor, and plus he did a good job or whatever. Sometimes training doesn't equate to the job. You can be less trained and only have gone through your academy and be an amazing officer and do good work. So, I just think that that's what they're trying to accomplish. I don't know if it's going to work.
You're locked into the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.